Welcome everybody to Satisfactionist Live. I am back once again. I'm your host, Ben Olmos. And then we'll quickly, I hate the fade on that music because it just drops out so quickly, but that's kind of what I'm dealing with the software that I have. And being a one-man band over here, board op, engineer, tech support, host, and everything else, that's kind of what you're stuck with, is having to deal with that stuff as you get it. So today, thank you folks, everybody for coming back. Today we are back at it again, talking about a topic that might be very timely for, this train wreck that just happened a few hours before taping this episode, which was the first presidential debate. And tonight we're going to be talking about platitudes. And with me tonight to talk about this very interesting topic is my good friend Lisa Fay. Lisa, how are you?
I am great and so happy to be back. Thanks for having me back again.
No, thanks for coming back. I mean, I love the fact that that you come that you're actually going to be coming up again soon as well, because you always have such great stuff to say and really interesting insights, and just loved the thing we did last week with Danielle. So very happy to have you back, and very much looking forward to what we're going to get into today, which is around platitudes. Now, this is something that I think is very much in your wheelhouse for a couple reasons, but one that I can think of is that you formerly were the president, president or chair, maybe, of the National Speakers Association Atlanta chapter. And you held that position for a year. National Speakers Association is a really cool organization that helps develop and well, you know what? I'm not going to do it any service talking about it. I think you'll do a better service talking about it. Tell us a little bit about NSA and what they do and what your role there was.
Sure. National Speakers Association is like the community group for people that are professional speakers. So a lot of people ask me, is it like Toastmasters? And here's how I describe them differently. Toastmasters is about if you want to be a better speaker, regardless of the venue. NSA is for people that get paid to speak. And it looks at our onstage skills, but also things that are around our entire business. So what I do on stage and writing my speech and performing in front of an audience is it's an important piece, but yet a small piece of my overall business I have to run. You talk about being a one-man band. I am the marketing, I'm IT, I'm legal, I'm
website designer,
research. Yes, I'm everything. So, we brought in really world-class speakers from around the country that talk to us once a month about different pieces of our business and how we can improve our business. The best thing about the National Speakers Association that I found is that if I've ever wanted help from anybody, they would all give me time. They don't view themselves as a set of competitors. I mean, you and I know from working at the Coca-Cola company, it was us and the P people.
Yes.
Right? And you were never in the same room. You never talked to them. There was never gatherings that pulled us together. And when I first showed up at my first NSA meeting and people were giving me tips and here's a great resource to use and here's something you can do that'll get you better, their whole philosophy is about making the pie larger, not about who gets a piece of the pie. Because even the people, there are other people that speak on the same kind of area that I do. They're not just like me. Their positioning is different. The way they deliver is different. So there's room enough for everybody to be successful. And those are the kind of people I love to be around.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like the entertainment industry. It's as if you were to say, we can only have so many actors and then that's it. And then we're only going to make so much content and that's it. And the idea around it is to really build upon the success of what it is. And, I was a member probably 5 or 6 years ago before I moved out to California. And I got a lot of joy out of being part of that group, because it's a lot of people who you feed off of the energy of the people, you get new ideas from people, and it really kind of fills you full of the gusto, if you will, that it takes to get out there and speak and talk to people. And it's one of those things that I really enjoy. I never went the Toastmasters group, which to some close friends of mine is no surprise because they always tease me about my ahs and my ums. But I never learned to talk good. The the thing that I love about not Toastmasters, the thing I love about NSA is when we get on this topic about platitudes, because one of the things that we see a lot in public speaking, and I think the term motivational speaker has really gotten a bad rap. Even you look at movies like Little Miss Sunshine, where Greg Kinnear was, this public speaker, and he had the 7 steps in the pyramid or whatever it was that he had. That term really gets really put in a bad light, and I think probably because of this overuse of platitudes, and platitudes being those empty. I like to call it like the when we think of things that are organic versus processed, the platitudes are the processed sugar of word use. It's a bunch of junk that is out there, that is said, that is spoken, doesn't mean anything. Over and over, it's like we're going to empower, we're going to give, everyone's going to have a voice, everybody means something. And it's not that those things aren't true, but I think sometimes what platitudes do is just highlight the obvious. And personally for me, it just kind of drives me nuts because I never learn anything when hearing somebody just talk in these very grandiose terms. So, as somebody who led the NSA, how do you feel about what I said? And then number 2, how do you combat that so you don't fall into being a really bad cliche of a public speaker?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is people outside the business of speaking have really latched on to this whole idea of motivational speaker that, gosh, I don't even know where it got its start, so many years ago. And I would say as professionals, there are very few people that I would say consider themselves motivational speakers. The people that probably consider themselves it's the guy who climbed up the Mount Everest blind. It is the guy that was left the last man in the boat and survived 21 days at sea, right? Those are the people that, have overcome these great odds and have these, amazing stories. But then they take those stories and then they pull out 5 or 6 ideas that you can apply to your life, that you don't have to be stuck out at sea. You don't have to climb that mountain. And actually, most professional speakers wouldn't describe themselves as speakers, interestingly enough. They would describe themselves as what they do for their clients, and the way they do it is speaking. So I help leaders and organizations drive enhanced business results through better communication based on the tools I've learned in improv comedy. Now, how I deliver that may be a keynote speech at an organization or a breakout. But because lots of people can speak, there's really no differentiator there. And the reason you hire me is for the result I give you, not because you need a speaker.
So there's something you bring to it than just this than just a talk, right? So you workshop, you do things that are going to give you not just it's not just ear candy, but it's really something that you can walk away with as a new learned skill.
Well, and when somebody calls and says, I'm looking for a speaker, the question is, what do you want that speaker to do? What's the role they're playing in that organization? What do you want the group of people that are tending to do better, different, or stop doing? If you answer those questions for me, I can find someone who can speak to your group to help that. But if you just tell me you want a speaker, I mean, it's wide open. It's from the guy who can stand up in a Toastmasters group, right, and speak about something that they're passionate about, to a professional speaker that gets paid $75,000 a speech.
Yeah, and that is that is the crazy thing. There's there's a circuit, if you will, for
Mm-hmm.
speakers, and there are some folks. I mean, there's two that I know of here in the Atlanta area. One of which I know from meeting through some teaching work that I did, which is Victor Antonio, and he also used to be an NSA member. He still may be, but Victor is one of these guys who, sales lecturer, trainer, speaker, goes out and does like these big, literally arenas for some of his clients. And then another is Dan Thurman, who's
I know
another,
Dan well.
yeah, who's another one here in Atlanta. And I don't know Dan very well. I've met him. He would never remember it, but interestingly enough, he is on the board of the theater that the theater school that my daughter goes to. So,
Oh, wow.
and my daughter knows his daughter, which is kind of interesting. But
And he's a past national president of NSA.
oh, is he real? Well, it's
Yeah,
easy to see why, because if you haven't heard of Dan Thurman, you should go out, Google him, check out his stuff, because
absolutely.
he is amazing. He's an entertainer. He's a juggler, and he's just so full of energy. I don't know that you can really stop him from being that ball of energy that he is. but but yeah, I mean, so I've come across some folks who really embrace that that public speaking for what it is, and I would say that folks like yourself, Dan, Victor, you're not the platitude type. What you sometimes see is, and it was funny because when I set this up, I thought maybe there would be a presidential debate that would exhibit what I'm talking about here, but in reality, we got something quite different this evening. But typically what you see in election season, and it could be a number of candidates, is you see folks speaking from this platform of platitudes where they're really just trying to use these inspirational words, and it just doesn't land very well.
I think the biggest piece that I've learned from being a speaker and from watching great speakers is what makes them motivational to me is their genuineness.
Yeah.
Is that they tell me their story from their perspective, and their journey is what I see. I can find bits of it that relate to me and my own journey. I can see how they overcame things. That's what motivates me. Not, if you said, Lisa, do you want to sign up to go see a motivational speaker? I'm kind of like, eh. But if you want to see, hear somebody that did XYZ and will show you how to do it, if that is of interest to me, then I'm going to sign up.
Yeah, I think another popular person that comes to mind when we hear that term motivational speaker is Tony Robbins. Now,
Yes.
what's interesting is that I hear people talk about having gone to one of his like weekend things, and they're like, wow, it was incredible. But then like I watched a Netflix doc, and kind of got, I guess, a little bit of exposure to it, and for, I don't know, maybe I'm just dead inside, I don't know, but it didn't really, it didn't really do anything for me. I think, quite honestly, I mean, if it helps you, I mean, I think I'm a fan of anything that helps a person in a positive way, right? So, if it is something, and I don't want to sound like I'm bashing, you know, that side of it, because I think there are people who generally get some good help and some good feedback and insight from things like that. But for me, it's a little bit more tough. Let me ask you this: have you ever, in working with folks at NSA, because I know one of the things that they do that I think is very valuable is when you present in front of other people and you have the opportunity to get feedback from them,
Mhm.
and they give you some tips and pointers on what you can do better and things like that. Have you ever come across anybody that maybe had too many cliches, and what would you maybe give them as advice to be a better presenter and speaker in that realm?
Um, so first of all, I only give feedback to speakers who ask me to play that role for them.
Good
I
point.
don't assume because I'm a professional speaker that gives me the right and the wisdom to provide everybody feedback. Um, the place where I've given the most feedback is we have kind of like a workshop organization, a subset of NSA that they meet every couple of weeks, and people can come in and bring portions of their speeches and present them. And they have guest enrichers that come in. So I've been a guest enricher several times where I'm able to provide feedback, but I'm also one of all their peers. The audience also provides feedback. And I think for me, it goes back to believability, genuineness, and is this how real people talk? So you and I know the soft drink business very well. And we could take pretty much any conversation we may have had at work and try to have it at a dinner table. And people having dinner with us may not understand half of the things we said
Right.
because we use all the acronyms, right?
Right.
Some of that comes with the platitudes, et cetera, like that too, is they're words that people that's not how they talk. So I ask people to think about who is in your audience and is that how they would talk? And is that the language that they use? Um, I once did a big keynote that I was at the end of a full day of an organization that had a conference for the day. And I was the last speaker. And I came in earlier to hear some of the other speakers talk, which I always try to do. So I can do callbacks to things that the audience has heard before. But the one thing I realized is that the audience on average was 20 to 30 years younger than my typical audience. So I have a lot of references that I talk about and use that were no longer relevant.
I run into this when I'm teaching, by the way.
Oh yeah. So one of them, because it was a woman's audience, and I was talking about things you learn and telling stories of my career, and I talk about the old days when we used to have to wear pantyhose everywhere. And I said, ladies, you know what pantyhose are, don't you? They're tights that are really thin, right? You just think about something and how do you reference it to them? And of course, they all laughed, but those kinds of shifts and changes you have to make relative to your audience. Another example was when I went to a software company and spoke to a client organization. I got a lot of their language, just enough so that I could know what I was talking about and also know when they used a term that I had no idea what it was, that I could proudly say, I have no idea what that is, and have fun with it. But I think that is the biggest piece that I give people, again, when asked.
Yeah, and I mean, I think a part of that too is making sure that you stay engaged in the current thing. Recently, I've been teaching, and what has come up is W. Edwards Deming, and most people, most business school people know Deming. The older generation knows Deming because he was very popular during the reinvention of the automobile industry in the United States during the 1980s, and he was kind of a big part of that. So if you've been in that operations thing, but one of his 14 points of management, is where I'm getting at, is he talks about like always know the new thing, always be involved and engaged in the new thing. And so sometimes from my fellow peers and colleagues at universities, when I talk about like, yeah, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Snapchat, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I do all the social media platforms. I try to stay current with, the technology, the lingo, the verbiage, the, what's going on. And it's not always things I want to listen to, but I'm surprised every once in a while. Like I kept hearing about this guy, Post Malone, and then I see him and I'm like, oh my god, he's got tattoos all over his face, and that's a thing. And then I heard one of his songs and I was like, I like Post Malone. So I try to always continually open myself up to the things that are kind of new and emerging, and I don't like it all, but at least I'll give it a chance, right? And I think that
Absolutely.
that's kind of part of it.
Well, and another thing is when I was doing improv comedy actively at Whole World Theater on Spring Street, one of the things I had to do, I subscribed to People magazine because we always would get suggestions from the audience, people to impersonate or situations and stuff. And like, I did not know what a honey boo boo was. I had to go look it up, and I figured out that I just needed to read People every week to find out what was going on so that I could have a clue when some suggestion was thrown at me.
Yeah, there was a time when pop culture, I was right there. I got all the references, but now every once in a while I'm scratching my head. But thankfully I have two younger daughters, and one of them is a teenager, and so she's very good about giving me um, a look when I've got it wrong.
Dad.
um, but one of the things we were talking about earlier, you were talking about inspirational speakers, and it made me think of one of the shows I enjoy watching is America's Got Talent, and this year that show was won by Brandon Leake, who is a spoken word performer. And it was funny because like from the first performance, probably the first, maybe even second, I was like, this guy's gonna, like, he's gonna take it, he's gonna go all the way. And sure enough, like he did it. And I think because every time he spoke, it was, you felt the words that he was saying, they resonated, they really, like, you just watched him, and then you were just like, wow, that was great. um so rarely do I come across a speaker that really affects you that way, but for somebody to do that, oftentimes in a live crowd you get a little bit of a bump because it's live, but over the television it can sometimes be a little bit harder. But I mean, he did a fantastic job.
Well, it's my life as a speaker today, right? So one of the things I did recently was go virtual. I've got a client I'm going virtual with on Friday, and
Nice.
it's a lot tougher because a I love reading an audience and playing off and feeding their energy. And when the first one I did, while they were in a room, I was projected to the room. I could see no one's faces, at least on Zoom, which I'll be on Friday. I will be able to see some of the people in the screen to have some idea of what's going on. But that interplay and the ability to engage people um, through television, video, it is so much harder.
It absolutely is. And being a professor and being in an environment now where all of my classes are online,
Oh,
um, it's it's challenging. I love online learning. I do. I think there's definitely a future in it, but you really got to work harder to draw people into the conversation. And one of my problems is I do talk a lot when I when I lecture. So a lot of points that I want to make, but you know, thankfully the content is entertaining enough that I do get good feedback. And I have students. I guess because part of it is I understand that I'm competing with Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, and quite honestly, they could look like they're paying attention and have another screen off to the side,
And
doing
my
something
cat
else.
or my child or lunch or the mailman or right, all the things that can and do happen when trying to do whatever I'm doing from home.
Yeah, yeah, and so to be able to compete against all of those other things that grab people's attention, that is one of the biggest challenges of doing online stuff. But knowing you, having you have some great. By the way, we'll plug your website here because if you go on lisafay.com and you check out her TED Talks, that's a great example of your ability to make something interesting and come through in a format where you're not there and you're not live.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, you have some really good talks, and those are that's just kind of an example of putting yourself in that medium and getting out there and doing that.
Yeah, thanks. And but those were also taped in front of a live audience. So,
It's true.
right? I mean, it does make a difference. My stand-ups that are on my website too, again, in front of a live audience, it plays differently and my energy is differently. Um, when I get off of something like this, uh, I have to put so much extra energy. I think the reason that when you tape your shows at 11 o'clock at night is because if you taught all day, you needed a nap to
No,
re-energize to get ready.
surprisingly, no. And what's even more surprising is typically when we're done, I'll be up until 2 in the morning because I'll go back to doing something else that I've been working on. So um, it's just part of the nature of how I've worked. And what happened was years ago I started going to college while I was working full time, and we had our daughter and raising a family, and I just got used to not going to bed before 2 o'clock, and it's just stuck with me. So now I'm it's typically the way things happen for me. Um, One thing I did want to mention here, though, as we kind of draw things to a close, couple things. One for the folks listening at home, Satisfactionist Live has now gone to Spotify, so I'm very excited about that. So. Any of the episodes that we're doing here, if you want to catch a replay of them, if you want to listen to them again, if you want to watch them again, that would be awesome too. But you can check it out now on Spotify, which is fantastic. Also have another new something coming up.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so we're at Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher. I mean, pretty much blanketing the podcast universe. So these live shows do turn into a podcast the next day. So feel free to share, tell your grandma about it. Um, the other thing is, I do have another announcement that will be coming probably next week, about a new little thing that we're going to be doing for the show as well. So hoping that you guys check that out. As we wrap, though, as we typically do, I always like to do a what are you drinking? And tonight, what I am drinking is this wonderful Passamante from Masseria Lavelli. This is fantastic, and I happen to be drinking it from, and this is very special for me. So my very first gig in the wine industry was working for a company called Folio Fine Wine. Folio Fine Wine Company. It's a company that's owned by Michael Mondavi, and right now Michael's family is going through some challenging times with the fires that are going on in Napa. And it's not just the Mondavi family; it's a lot of our winery friends in the Napa area. So definitely want to give a shout out to all the folks who are just going through this whole mess again. And I really wish the best for you. You guys came to mind because this is my cup. You probably doesn't show up very well on camera, but I was given this cup with my name etched in it and the company name etched in it. I've held on to it for all these years to kind of mark my my time with them and working with them. So it was kind of the thing that I got when I first started working there, and I use it. I think about you guys. Definitely, I hate the cliches that we were just talking about, platitudes, but truly, I mean, my heart does go out to you guys who are dealing with all of that mess, and I really hope that things get under control soon and that everybody is safe and healthy and wonderful. But I also want to give Lisa an opportunity to share what she is drinking.
Well, I am drinking from a much more recent vineyard. My one of my favorites. So I plan not to be up till 2 a.m. So I'm going through the caffeine-free version of Diet Coke. And there's nothing like a Coke product to remind me of all the wonderful people I had the pleasure of working with over my 30 years at the company. And one of my favorites is you, Ben. And
Oh,
I'm glad that we've stayed in touch.
absolutely. I mean, I think it's our duty to keep in touch with all of our fellow hardworking folks who went through so many years there. I really do need to wrangle more folks into coming onto this thing because it was great, like having you and Danielle the other night.
That was
Um,
awesome.
so, folks, I do want to also just remind you coming up on Thursday, we're going to be talking about universal basic income and artificial intelligence. And you would think maybe those two things don't necessarily go well together, but the way things are going, that may not necessarily be the case because UBI may be something to be considered in our current environment as we are advancing with things like artificial intelligence. And then next week, we have some awesome guests coming on. Binley Sangster and John Martinez. Binley is the owner of Sangster's Blue Mountain Coffee. They are a small lot premium Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee farm. Binley has this amazing, incredible story. His family is just it's just wow. Binley is such a interesting, dynamic guy, and so positive and so full of some great energy. So we're gonna have a really great conversation about coffee, and then we're also gonna be talking about communication and have we lost some of our ways to communicate, and that is coming up next week as well. For those who joined us, thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you guys checking it out. By the way, if you are ever watching this live, you want to throw up a comment or you have a question, feel free to put it there in the live stream, and just know that I could possibly pluck it out of the stream and put it on the screen, and we'll talk about it live. So, Lisa, thank you very much once again for
Thank you.
coming back. Look forward to having you back again. And everybody else, it has been a wonderful, and hope to see you back on Thursday. And until then, have a wonderful evening. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.